So in the design, develop, and deploy part one, we created a simple application and we deployed it to Cloud Hub, but there are a couple of things related to policies that we didn't see. So I initially thought we would see them with the second project that we started building, but since the second project it will involve databases in AWS and so on, I thought experimenting with the simpler one, the policies, the different policies, caching strategies, and so on. Let's experiment with this simpler one, because some people may not create AWS account. So this one, the first one, it doesn't need any AWS. So today we are going to spend more time on this one, applying different policies, understanding what policies are, why we use policies, and so on. So in the first one, to remind you, what we did was, so we went to Design Center and we created this RAML file or RAML specification. Basically, what it does is it returns Dowley's 3 schools data for the data that is specified. So there is a query parameter and the possible different data sets that we can pass as query parameters are enumerated here. And here is a dummy sample data. We tested it here in the API console and we published it to Exchange. So we publish specifications to Exchange so that they are discoverable. And also we imported it to Anypoint Studio, and then, so this is like a blueprint, right? A starting one. This is not real implementation. We took it to Anypoint Studio and modified this one. And we pushed it to Cloud Hub. And that is it. That is where we stopped when we publish it. So a couple of things. One, when we push it to Cloud Hub, it was just public, but usually APIs are not public. They should have security and different kinds of policies that we are going to see. The other thing is also when we imported this one to Anypoint Studio, we didn't really use best practices in structuring it. So before we move forward with a more involved, more real world with the second project, let's complete this one end to end. So we published this to Exchange simply by you go here and you click publish, then it goes to Exchange. Let me create another tab and show you if I have it in Exchange or if for some reason I deleted it from there. So yeah, I have it here and we say you can make it public here. If I just click this and click share, I can make it public to make it publicly accessible. Once you do that, if you go to public portal, it should be there. Yeah, we have shared it here. So now if I just share this with you, since it is public, you can get it and use it. Whereas if it is not made public, it will be accessible only by the same company. You can also share it with a group of people that you want. So now, so let's revisit what we did in Anypoint Studio. What we did was I have archived it here. We created a project called Design, Develop, Deploy, and we imported it. Let's quickly do that. So recreate it again. And I want to show you restructuring rather than just having one long code in real world. We divide our code into different chunks so that it becomes easier to understand what it is doing. And if there is any issue also, it becomes easier to debug. So we'll go create a new project. So it is design and develop, deploy, one. So we said we can import RAML specification from Design Center, or if it is downloaded to our computer also, we can import it from our computer We can also import from Exchange or if it is published. So, and also we said this should be checked. So if we check this scaffold flows from these API specifications, it creates the minimal flows based on the RAML specification. So API kit is used to generate the flows. API kit, we said, it generates flows from the RAML specification, and also when requests are sent to that application, the API kit validates if the requests are as required, as expected. So, but for now, let's go ahead. And since we imported a couple of times from Design Center, now let's import from Exchange. So click here and add new, then click from Exchange. Then you have to be logged into your account. If you have not logged in, it will just ask you to log in. So I will just search here the APIs that I pushed, the API specifications that I pushed to Exchange. So if I start typing W3, here it is this one. So I add it to the selected modules. Now it has been selected. Just now I need to click finish 2 times. So here, and then click here, finish again. And if you have different versions of that API specification in Exchange, also it shows you here, you can select a specific version. Okay, perfect. So we said this is the API kit. It generates, based on the specification that we created, it generates the minimal flows. And it has 3 flows, this particular one, it has 3 flows. So if we collapse it, we said this one, the top one is the main, like that is the interface, or interface means front facing, or like a gate. And we have this console also. This console is just for testing in the console. And the actual implementation is the last one, the third one. If I expand it here, you see here, the resource we created in Design Center, it was here. We have this resource, W3 schools with gate method. We just have only this one endpoint. That is what you see here. W3 schools, the resource, gate is the method, and there is this configuration also. We don't need to change the flow name here. So, and here you see it generated different error handling for different error types. We reviewed this one, the different errors that can happen and their responses and so on. One thing that I want to cover here is, let me close the previous one. One thing that I want to show you here is, usually rather than just having one XML configuration file which contains all of these things together, what we do is we create 4 files, one to handle errors, one for global configuration, one for implementation, the actual flows, and one for interface. So the interface will be the API kit. This one will be changed to API kit. So the error handling and the configuration, we have to move them to new XML files. How do we do that? We go here, simply just write. So as you can see, we have only this W3 schools SAPI XML. So let's click here, right click here, and go to new. And rather than mule project, now we just click mule configuration file. So mule configuration file. So one to put the error handling related flows, error.xml. Another one, again, I do the same thing. I will call it global.xml. Global configurations. Configurations for the project. And another one, let's say implementation. So this is where we build our flows, which could be very complex. So implementation, at least .xml. So we have these ones. Now, this W3 school SAPI that it created based on, it gave it name based on what we have here, the title in the RAML specification. Let me rename it and call it interface. So that will be the front facing, that will accept requests. The API kit will validate them and route them to the appropriate flows. So let's rename it. I just right clicked on it, go down, and there is refactor and then rename. So this part, I will call it interface. So we have these ones. So now what we are going to do is this interface also. Let me open it. This error handling related flows, we will move them to error. Configuration related flows, we will move them to here. As you can see, the global, it doesn't have any configuration here. The implementation, it doesn't have anything, as you can see. So the implementation related flows will be here. And the interface at the end will contain only this one, as you can see. This one also without error handler, like this. And this one, it will be a flow reference that references to what you have in the implementation. So let's start with, let's move these flows that handle errors. So a little bit of understanding of the XML code is important. So if you are new to XML, I hope you have watched some video tutorials that I shared today. So if you see here, we have the flows here. It is where when we drag and drop, and when it creates flows for us, there is the XML also that it generates the configuration XML. And let's try to understand it at a high level now that we have worked a little bit with the XML code so far. Okay, so what do we have here? See, let's focus here. So this line, it is just a version and encoding. We don't care about that. And here is a tag. This is called a tag. So it opens with less than, and you give it some tag there. So the tag here is mule. And you see it, this less than at the end, it has a greater than, this one. We have a greater than, and everything inside it are attributes about that tag. So these are called namespace and so on. No problem. Now we will understand them another time. That is not important for this class. But you see there is a tag with its own attributes. So here it opens. This is an opening tag, and see it creates. Let me exit from here. You see, when I click on this mule tag, it will, this small shaded rectangle on the top right, it will show where that tag opens and where it ends, where it starts and where it ends. So if I click here, see it came here. So go down, it should end at the end. So you see there is mule at the end. So a closing tag, on the other hand, includes less than, followed by forward slash, then the same tag name. This tag name can be anything. In mule, it is mule, but it is flexible. It is not just predefined set of keywords that you can use. And then there is this greater than. So this is ending tag, and here it is opening tag. Okay, so everything is under this. So we can understand, even if we don't need to write this code, this helps us to understand where things are starting and where they are ending. Like this one, for example, see there is a flow here. It is opening because it didn't close. There is no forward slash here. So I know this is an opening tag. The tag name is flow, and I can see where it ends. From line 7, it goes up to line 98. You see it in line 98. It ends here with less than, forward slash, flow, and then greater than. On the other hand, let me just create new lines here. See this one, HTTP listener. So you know this is configuration. Everything about this flow tag is configuration related. There is this HTTP listener that is basically for this one, for this listener. So HTTP listener configuration is here. You see even the host and the port. You can see it here. This is local host. 4 zeros, and the port is 8081 as usual. So this tag, HTTP listener, you see it opens here and it closes here, this one. And the API key, on the other hand, it is just, it doesn't have content in content body, but rather it has only attributes. If it has only attributes, in that same tag, you see this less than, and it's a tag name and the attributes, and it closes at the end. And to close that tag, it just have a forward slash here. So this one I know from here, it is related to the API kit configuration. So these lines, let's cut them from here, cut, and move them to the global configuration. As you can see in the global configuration, we don't have any configuration here, but I can come to the configuration here and the code. See here, this code, it is empty in the content. See the content section, mule tag, it opened here, and with some attributes. See, here is greater than, so it is opening, and it is ending here. There is nothing there, but now I will paste the code that I cut from the interface. Now, if you come here, you see the configuration related specifications. So configurations are here: HTTP listener configuration and router configuration. Okay, perfect. We are done with the configuration. Now let's take the error related configurations. We don't have anything here, as you can see. Also, it is just empty here, just empty in this section, just only attributes. This tag opened here and closed here, no content. So the error flows, we will bring them here. So to add flows that handle errors, if we go to the implementation, let me show you, I mean, in the interface, what it generated. You see here, there are different flows that, that handle different kinds of errors. And if you see in the configuration for handling errors, one error handler, it starts here. See, this one is an opening tag, and it shows me the lines that it where it ends. It is from line 16, go down. By the way, when you watch this video on YouTube, you have to make sure you increase the resolution so that you can clearly see it. From line 16 to line 95, it closed here. See, error handler. So now what we are going to do is this code, we will move the whole code, we will move it to this file, to the error handler, and the reference the flow. So first we have to create an error handling flow. How do we create an error handling flow? As you can see, there is no any flow here. A flow that handles errors, we come to core, and we just drag and drop this one, error handler. Drag and drop it here. Let's rename it API error handler. So let's see the code now. Let's try to understand what is there in the code. The API error handler is this one. As you can see, it has just the name that we gave it as an attribute, and it has an ID also, error handler, and it closed here. We want to put all the code for error handling here as a content. So what we do is we remove this forward slash. Now see, if I go here and start to put a closing flash, a closing tag with less than forward slash, since it knows there is a tag, error handler tag that has been opened, it will autocomplete it itself. So if I do like this, it autocompletes it. Now, all the flows that handle errors from the interface, we will bring them and paste them here. Come here. So error handler, it starts, we said, first one for the API key, error handler is here. From line 16 to line 94. So this tag, I will leave it, but I start from here. I will show you why we need this one. So from line 17 to line 94. See, this tag now is empty at the top, this one. It just opened here and it closed, nothing is there. We will move the code to this error handler configuration and the references of flow, because we have created a flow called API error handler. So I will bring the code and paste it here. Now, if you come here to the message flow, you see the flows here. These flows are for handling in the errors in the API kit. We can also add different types of other types of flows if you want. So the flow name here is API error handler. So we will reference it in this implementation. So how do we reference it? To reference it, what we do is we put it as an attribute ref, then the ref is for reference, then the name API error handler. And then I have to close it. I don't need this one. The reference is put not in the content and not in the body, but as an attribute. So you see it shows me an error message because I have not closed it. So API error handler, then close it. So, okay. Oh, did I do something bad? Let me see. Interface. Where is it? API error handler here. Yeah, this one. So you see this one, all the code that was here, we moved it to here and we are referencing it just here by using ref API error handler. I have to make sure the name is the same. API error handler. Is that what I gave here? Yep. Or I can just to make sure not there are no any typos. You can also just copy paste it here. So we have moved the error handler for the API. But still, if you go here, there is also error handler for the console, for the API kit console. This one is just one flow. This one also we can move it. So let's come here and create another flow to handle errors. Bring it here. I will call it, rather than API error handler, I will call it console error handler. So if you come in the configuration, the console error handler also, here it is, as you can see, there is no anything inside it. I will create this one like before. So less than, then forward slash, then it completes it, as you can see, because it knows we have created, opened a tag here. So I will bring the code from the interface and paste it here the same way. So come here, go to here. Let's search for another error handler. This is for the console. As you can see, console is here. Error handler starts here from line 30 to line 44. So remove this and take it here and paste it here. And console error handler is the name. I will bring it here. Remove this, the same thing. Just I'm doing the same thing like what we did with the API kit error handler. So put it as a reference. I reference it here as an attribute and close it using forward slash. Now, if you see here, our flows in the interface, in the front facing, it looks a little bit more neat. And especially in the implementation, once you import your specification from Design Center, you have to implement it here. So this could be based, depending on the project, very complex flows, multiple flows, very long ones where you have to use flow reference and so on. So you want to abstract that by moving the code for that to the implementation configuration. So you use flow reference here. Let me make sure I have not made any mistakes. If you have any typos or any mistakes, you will see errors here. But so far we are good. Okay. So let's do the same thing for this one. This flow, we are going to move it to the implementation. And in the implementation, we will modify the code. For this one, it is simple, reading WSRI schools data and returning that. For next one, it will be like the long flows that we're building, where you have scatter gather, choice router, flow reference with private and flows and so on. But in this case, it is simple one. So basically, the implementation will be a subflow for this one. So we want to create a subflow. I mean, a private flow. I mean. So the same thing, if we come to the implementation, we don't have anything here. You can see in the code, there is nothing, the tag in the content. So let me bring a flow here. So you can go to core and go down here, see for flow. Flow is here, drag and drop it. There is an empty flow. So let's call it implementation flow. I'll just use kebab case. So it is implementation flow. See the code for implementation flow. It started here, implementation flow. There is nothing there. This one also, since I am going to bring the code here, I will remove this and create space and close that tag, just autocomplete it. So the code for the implementation, I will bring it here and use flow reference. So come here. If you see the code, here is a flow name. We don't need to mess up this one. We don't need to modify it. That flow name and everything, let it be there. We just remove this part, everything in this flow tag. So this is the real implementation. The real implementation will be referenced here. So cut it from here and go to the implementation and paste it here. And the flow name, you can see it's a flow name here, implementation flow. I can see it also here. So I will copy it from here. Oh, wait, I missed it. I put that, sorry. It should not, let me see, where did I put it? It should be here. I put it outside. Okay. Let me undo here. Okay. Cut this and paste it here. Yes, inside the flow tag, inside the implementation flow tag. Now, if you see, we have this flow with the transform message. This code generated that. And the implementation, the flow name is this one. So I want to refer to use in the interface. Now we use flow reference here. So if you come here, you see we don't have anything here in the source and in the process, the error handler. We don't have anything here. As you can see, we drag and drop flow reference. If you go here and flow reference is here, bring it here. So what do you want to reference? I want to reference the flow in the implementation. So this flow itself in the implementation, it can be calling other flows. I can have multiple flows calling here. And this one is like the main one in the implementation. And this flow will be referenced by this one in the interface. So the flow name is good if we put the same flow name as the actual in the display name. The flow, if we put the flow name, it's good. So I can see from the drop down, it is this one that I am referencing, not the console or main. If I do like this, and it gets the payload here. If I save this, I hope there is no any error. So now we are done with this one. Now we can come and do whatever we want with in the implementation one. By the way, in this interface also, you can just right click on the flow and extract it. That one sometimes it gives an error message. If you get an error message, follow the steps that I just showed by dragging and dropping the flow reference. If you made some mistake, it may give you an error message. So now we come to the implementation. We are almost done here in the implementation. Yeah, now you continue building yeah, it is now building time, implementation time. So you will have the real business logic here. And as you can see, there is no source here because it is a private flow and we are referencing it here. So in this first example, we don't have any complex flow. What we have is just read in W3 data and return the requested data. We did that in class 9. So under data with class 9, let me expand this. So the data is under main resources. You can see we have it here, or you can copy paste it from your machine. Now, since I have it, I will copy it from here. Just create a folder and paste the files to there is what we did. Just watch the data with class 9 if you forget this. Okay. Copy and come to main resources, just paste it here. Come here, paste. So now if I come, here it is, W3 schools, and the data sets are here, all of them are CSV. And also to read the requested data, we have this simple flow. we are using the readRL, and we say this class path takes us to the main resources, and we give it the complete path, and we specify also the data type when we use the readRL function. We said so it takes, what it does is from the query parameter, it is getting the query parameter as a variable requested file. If we just concatenate this part, which is static, the same thing, with the query parameter, which is dynamic, with this .csv, you get the path for the requested data, and this readRL we'll get that data from that location. So let me copy this. Come to the implementation, this one. So as you can see, this one is the dummy data that we specified in Design Center for just testing purposes, for mocking purposes. Whereas this one will be, we will overwrite this with the real implementation. So just paste this, and I will close this project. And yep, now we are done. Let me see. Let me check this is working appropriately. There is some error somewhere. Okay, this looks fine. There is no error. So let's first test it. I will just run it, and we'll send a couple of requests. Okay. The other thing also, pay attention to the path here. The API kit, when it generates the path, it is /API /**. So it routes it to the appropriate endpoint. In our case, we just have only one. This one, you can have multiple endpoints. That's why you have an asterisk here. When we want to send a request, we'll send, in this case, localhost 8081 API W3 schools, then question mark data is equals to, from the query parameters, values one of them. So now let's check this one is working, and then we deploy it to Cloud Hub. There are two ways we can deploy to Cloud Hub. One is just by right-clicking here and going to endpoint platform, and there is deploy to Cloud Hub. But many times it is handled by, you may not have access to Cloud Hub. The DevOps people may be taking care of such things, so you have to export your implementation and give them, and they deploy it themselves. In that case, you export it as a jar file. We will see both ways to deploy it. So this is deployed locally. Let's quickly check it. I come here. What do I have? It was 8081. We should not forget this API, right? Then the asterisk will be the resource, and the method is also get. My method is get, and W3 schools question mark for the query parameter, data equals to products, for example, if I want the products data. So if I do that, send request, let's see if we get, you see, we get the products data. So if we push this to the cloud, then if we test this, it will give us actual data that is. So this is a public, it can be a public data set that returns the W3 schools data as JSON. Or there is the same thing. So this is working, and we tested the different errors by changing this. If our code is bad, 400 error, 404 if the resource doesn't exist, and 405 if the method is not allowed. We tested all of these things in the first version of that video, so you can watch that video if you have not watched it yet. Okay, so I will stop this one, and we are going to see the different ways, the two ways to deploy to Cloud Hub. Okay, so the first one is you just right click here, you go to endpoint platform, deploy to Cloud Hub. So when I do that, it brings this screen. If you have not logged in yet, it will ask you to log in. Okay, let me show you in my Cloud Hub what projects I have. So you go to Runtime Manager. Now it is in run. It gets deployed to Runtime Manager. Okay. I have this one. I think that I deployed at that time. Now I will overwrite it. Or let me show you. I can also remove it from here and deploy a fresh one. just I went to setting and deleted it, delete. There is also this one. I don't need this also. I will remove this also. So I deleted this. I have these two. Okay, APIs deployed. So now I should be fine to deploy this. So here you give it a unique name. We say if it exists, it will give you an error. Or you can select override existing application. It overwrites it. We are pushing it to Cloud Hub, as you can see, the target. And this one, it is free version. The worker is one. So worker means workers in this case shows like number of instances. If you consider in terms of multiple computers working together, how many computers you have. And worker size is the size of that single computer. For the free version, they have just one, and you have these different worker sizes. I think in my case, they are the ones at the bottom are disabled because I have deployed already a couple of them. Otherwise, maybe these ones could also be active in your case. So they give for the free version, it depends on the number of applications and also the worker size that you are using. Anyway, we need them just for testing purposes. This minimum memory size is enough. Everything is fine here. Just click deploy application. So this one will take a couple of minutes to deploy until this one gets deployed. The second way is, I will show you, the second way is to extract this as an archive. So what we do is we go to that project, right click on it, and like there is import for importing a new project, there is export also to export it. So if I click export, there are different ways here that we can export it, but to deploy it, we need this one. You go to Mule. Usually you may see this collapsed like this when it comes for the first time. You go to Mule, then you select this one, Anypoint Studio project to Mule deployable archive. So when you click this, you go click next. Then in here, you have to make sure you specify the location. I will specify my location as the downloads folder. So it will be a jar file. And here you have to make sure these ones are checked. Attach project sources and also include project modules and dependencies. So for some reason, if you uncheck this one, it will not export the dependencies and it may give errors. When it gets deployed, it may not get the dependencies. And there is even a question on this one in the practice part of the Anypoint fundamentals course. Let me show you that question. Let's do it together. So it is this one. It's what it is saying. So a Mule project contains a MySQL database dependency. See, dependency. The project is exported from Anypoint Studio, so it can be deployed to Cloud Hub, the same as what we are doing right now. Now the question is, what export options create the smallest deployable archive that will successfully deploy to Cloud Hub? So the first one is C, one of them is unchecked. In B, both of them are checked. In C, both of them are unchecked. In D, the lower one is checked. So the answer in this case should be, can you share in the chat your answers here? Yep, perfect. Yes, this one, both of them should be, it should include the project resources and also the dependencies. Perfect. Okay, let's see. So I will exit from here. I have other questions also. We will see them one by one. So this one, we click finish. Let's see the other one. Did it complete the deployment? I will cancel this for now. And I thought I clicked deploy. Okay, click deploy application. I see. Okay, I didn't click deploy. Okay, so now it will take some time to deploy until it does that. I'm not sure if Anypoint Studio does two tasks at the same time, deploying to Cloud Hub and exporting an archive. Let's just try what it says. Export as deployable archive next. And we said I will put it in downloaders. Next, just leave the defaults here. Both of them should be checked and click finish. Okay. It seems it does deployment and also exporting at the same time. That's perfect. So until this one complete, okay, successfully exported is fast. Now let's see here. Yes, it is here. Let me remove this one. It's not to confuse you. This is this one. Now I can take this. You can share this file with the DevOps or whoever deploys to the company's account. You give them this, and they can deploy it to Cloud Hub. That's also a second option if you don't have the permission to directly deploy to Cloud Hub. So let's see this one. Delete. Where is the okay, do I have maybe since I was exporting it did this was not successful yet. Let's see. It didn't give an error message either. So maybe it stopped when I was exporting the archive. Okay, this one now it seems it is working. Let's cover a couple of things until this gets deployed. So we say let's start. Let's summarize what we did. So we have an account. I hope all of you have account, Anypoint platform account. You go to Design Center first. We start with designing. We say the best practices are first starting with design. And okay, that is in the other slide. Okay, let me open. It was here. So we saw these steps. So first we start with designing. And if I bring this here, so we have designing here. We get to generate the blueprint. So the advantage of starting with design is we can quickly get feedback, and we don't spend a couple of months building something and it is wrong at the end of the day. While it is just in the start, we get feedback. So we design something, we simulate it in as a API console. Simulating means just testing it with dummy data. You get feedback, then you implement the feedback, you validate it, and you get API specification. In our case, that's what we have done. This is the API specification. This is the API specification. Okay. Now, this API specification, one thing to make it discoverable, you publish it to Exchange by clicking publish here. And the other thing is you start building. So this will be the building and testing phase. That is what we just did. So we came here. Oh, guys, this is not working. It's okay, we came to Anypoint Studio. And so this is actual implementation or building. We structured the code and modified this one's actual code in the flow, replaces the dummy data. Let me see why this is not working. It should work. Or maybe I will remove some of the applications I have. Runtime manager. Yeah, these ones are even just, they have been stopped. Or else I will remove them. We quickly remove them. I'm not sure if this has been working. Okay. Just remove. And this one also, you go to setting. And here you can stop and start them and delete them also. So I don't have any application there. So now I'm not sure why it should not be working. Maybe I deleted after it started to deploy, and so initially it existed and it is trying to overwrite it, and now it couldn't get it. So let me start fresh. See, now the overwrite is not even there because I deleted it. Okay, deploy. Okay, perfect. So what we are doing is, let's get to the slides. So now we got here. We built the API, we tested it. So that is the implementation phase. As you can see, this is called implementation. The inner one, it is called design, whereas the second circle, it is implementation. From the implementation, the output is services with API. So that's what we are deploying. Now comes the deployment. So this stage, the last one, you see it includes deployment, monitoring, troubleshooting, managing, securing, and so on. So these ones are what we are going to see. So we are going to see with this simple example all the steps from end to end. Let me make sure this one is working. Yeah, now it seems it is working. So that we say to deploy, you have two approaches to deploy. You can export your project and handle it to the people who have the permission to deploy, or if you have if you can directly connect your endpoint studio with Cloud Hub, you can directly deploy it from Cloud Hub also, which is more convenient. So we are doing that. See, now deploying this one to Cloud Hub, it says, and if you come to Runtime Manager now, you see the deploying, it shows here, status deploying, you see the runtime version. This one, it detects it by default. You see some information when it was last modified, the target, and the name also. So this is one way. It takes some time. Let's see if I have another question that we can look at until it completes that. And here, okay, let me show you this one. It is not related to today's class. I just thought bringing a couple of questions in every class and also sharing in the channel will help you to assess yourself and study where you have some gaps. So I brought this question from the practice. Also, I strongly recommend to do the practice questions in the Anypoint platform course. It is at the end. And also the slides, the data we've, especially the data we've interview slides we created around the 4D questions. Keep doing them again and again until that becomes a normal thing for you, until you really practice it. So we have this question. So this question, like before, like I said, you may not need, usually you don't need to write the code yourself. You just drag and drop connectors and it creates and processors and it creates the code for you, but you should be able to understand the code at a high level. So see here, this question is one of them. It says, refer to the exhibits. When the flow executes the now function, there is now function here. See, it gives you the date time, which is called the timestamp, the date and the time. So the now function in the transform message component returns this one. 2021-08-26 is the date, and there is T for time. Hour is 13, 32 seconds, and 10 minutes. So it generates this one. Now, this flow, it writes records. Let's say it writes it to your computer. And the message is post, because you will send some payload to it. And the payload is given that you are going to send. Now there is a transform message. The transform message, as specified here, the now function in the transform message component returns this one. So transform message is here, and these labels are important. It adds a write date. You see this write date. Try to see it in this code. So the flow tag, it starts here and ends here. This should be easy by now. There is an HTTP listener with the configuration. Let's see where it closes, HTTP listener. So post, you see these keywords are here, post, recorders, and this is the configuration. And the path, you can see the path is recorders and unload messages, you see, since the unload message is post. If you don't specify it by default, it is post and get. Now it is only post. Now there is this transform message. This processor, it starts here. And its name is add write underscore date. This is the level that you see here. Then there is message. Now see, so the header section is here. See this header section. This is very important. You cannot simply see the label and say, okay, it writes CSV data. What is written in the label is just for display purposes. So what you, even if you wanted it to write CSV recorders, if you don't appropriately change it here, it will not write CSV record. So you have to be able to read this and understand it. So we say this is a header section in data weave. Above these 3 dashes is the header section. So you see the output, it says application JSON. Now in the body part, the payload, to the payload that is sent, which is this one, it is an object. It is concatenating another key value pairs. The key is write date, and the value is just this value, the output from now, which is shown here. So you see, so the output from here is a JSON. This payload, just add another key to it below position, which is key is just this string, and its value is this. Now, after that, there is this write from the file module. You see the file name as records.csv, and the path is specified here, and it is writing the payload. So from here, you cannot simply say, if I ask you now what it is going to output, and the options are here. See, in A is just the payload, the original payload here, nothing changed. B, this write date key has been added. C, the original payload as CSV, as comma separated values, as you can see with 1 row. The write date column has also been added in C, whereas in D it is original payload as CSV. So the first thing is this will not write CSV. C and D remove that. And the second thing is we are concatenating a key here. So A is not also an answer. So the answer is this one. So you should be able to, when you see such kind of code snippets, try to analyze it this way. Because sometimes it can get tricky. What you see here in the levels could be different from the code here. Okay, now let's see if, yeah, this one has been deployed. As you can see, application design, develop, deploy, part 1 successfully deployed Cloud Hub. We can click open browser, or I can even go here. See, it is started. As you can see now, this is started, it is running. And yeah, so this one now it is public. This one, it is public. Let me show you the second way to deploy an application. And this one, I will just give you the link, and someone will share your link and try it. And the reason we are going to do that is to show that it is public. Then we are going to add security on it. How do we add security layers so that only authorized people can access it? Okay, so the second way to deploy an application is, I will not remove this one so that we can try it while it is deployed the second way. You just come here. There is this deploy application. You just click here, deploy application and application name. So let me call it design. What was the name? Yeah, this one. I will just bring this, but yes, I will call it V2 version 2. Only lowercase letters, numbers, or dashes. Okay, underscore is not allowed. Okay, so the name is here, and deployment, we are deploying to Cloud Hub. We'll see what Cloud Hub 2.0 and shared space and hybrid and so on are. We are deploying to Cloud Hub. So let Cloud Hub, this is the same like before when we were deploying from Endpoint Studio, but the difference is now we are going to upload the code, the archive. So go here, choose file, and upload file. This is what we upload. And this is so fast actually. Click deploy application. Now this one is deploying. Now let's test the other one that we deployed, which is this one. So if I click it, it is running. So you see this is the domain. However, to this domain, always you have to remember you have to add starting from the API forward slash resource name and query parameter. So let's test this. So if I just click here, it says no listener for endpoint. So I will have to add in the path, that is the path here, API, then W3 schools, then it needs query parameter also. The query parameter name is data products, and it is HTTP. We will see the difference between HTTP and HTTPS. HTTPS involves, it is secure, more security layer. So, but this one is HTTP. In the browser by default, it is HTTPS. So this will give me an error message, as you can see, but it can, it has a lock sign here also, as you can see. If you just click here, you see it is HTTPS. So you have two options, either you remove the S or you test this in Postman. So if I do this, now you see the products data is here. So this is publicly accessible. Anyone from anywhere can check it. If I change this to orders, yeah, it is this S. Orders also, I have it. You can also test this in Postman. The difference is in here, it was in my computer. As you can see, there is localhost, but now it is available in the cloud. So I give that address. This one should also work. And the customer is, there is, okay, perfect. So let's see the deployment. You see this one, the status, while it is deploying, this is also good. You can see the logs, starting Cloud Hub. At this one, you see some logs, starting your application. You see here, and it says logs are kept for 30 days and so on. So it is deploying it. It says the API kit has already a configuration and so on. Okay, now I think it's almost done. Let's see. Your application started. You see, this is very quick when you export the archived file and just upload it. So you see here, this one is ready. Now, if I come to Runtime Manager, both of them will be there. Time Manager, you see version part 1 and part 1 version 2, both of them are running. Okay, so this one is, we said, public. Now we have to apply policies. There are different kind of policies that we have to see that help us to secure our application, to make it more usable, and also policies that help us to troubleshoot when there are issues, compliance-related policies, and so on. Also, and so we are going to see all these policies. We are at time already. I thought I would cover them today, but it will need at least another hour. So we will see that tomorrow. The only thing is, I want you to test this, all of you, in your browser. And if you get an answer, I want you to share in the chat, so to make sure that this is public, so that you understand it is public. And we will make it secure and private tomorrow by adding different policies. Can you try this in your browser or in your Postman? And by changing the query parameter also, data is equals to orders, to data is equals to products, orders, customers, and so on. So if you come to the design center, in the specification, the query parameters that are accepted are here. So we have data for these different query parameters. See this one, for example, it is an example of real-world example. It works on browser, perfect. Perfect. Who else tried it? Make sure the HTTPS, it should be HTTP. Our API works on HTTP protocol, not HTTPS. To do that, we change the port to 88 for HTTPS. We change the protocol to 8082, and there are security related stuff that we have to add. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Asqual and Amlakawi. Perfect, Daniel. Thank you. So tomorrow it is very interesting one. So tomorrow what we are going to see is, let me show you the slide, just a theory. We will repeat it tomorrow, and implements the actual implementation also. So let me exit for me. So what have we done so far? What we have done is, this slide summarizes it. What we have done so far is, in Design Center, we specified our RAML, we got our RAML definition, we specified our RAML contract, the design, how it should look like, how it should behave, what messages it should have, what the names of the resources are, and so on. Then we pushed it to Endpoint Exchange. Because this is used for storing organizations' API assets to make it public. And to Endpoint, we import it to Endpoint Studio. You can import from Exchange or from Design Center. We saw both approaches. You have to make sure scaffold is checked so that it creates the flows for you using API kit. And then we structured the project by creating different configurations for error handling, for global configurations, implementation, and interface. So the implementation layer is what we are adding, or it is the actual implementation or building or developing. That is what we did in Endpoint Studio. Then we deployed it to Runtime Manager today. That's what we did. We did it using two ways, directly from Endpoint Studio or using jar file. But in this stage, our API is publicly accessible, and we don't want to do that. So tomorrow we are going to see what policies to add, what we do that. And to add policies, what we do is we use Runtime Manager, and let me show you the theory, what it does. So in Runtime Manager, the API Manager, I'm sorry. So the actual application is in Runtime Manager, but the API Manager is used to apply policies. So in the API Manager, we create an API, and from that API, it gives us an ID. We take that ID, this is called auto discovery. We'll see it practically tomorrow. So we take that ID and add it to our project. Now, when we push it to Runtime Manager, the Runtime Manager and the API Manager, that ID will help them to communicate. So the Runtime Manager can get policies from the API Manager and also send analytics to the API Manager. So the different policies you apply in the API Manager, the Runtime Manager will get it. And if I move this here, so the API Manager generates an API ID, we said, for auto discovery. And here it says all APIs managed by API Manager have unique ID. So there is one-to-one mapping. For each API we create in API Manager, it gives us an ID. That ID, we take it and add it to the project. And when it is deployed to Runtime Manager, there is one-to-one mapping, and the Runtime Manager knows what policies have been applied to that API. And here it says API auto discovery with the provided ID enables API Manager to communicate with Runtime Manager. And the Runtime Manager pulls the policies from API Manager. Runtime Manager sends back analytics to API Manager. So these are just theories. So it may not make sense for you right now. However, tomorrow, when we spend enough time doing this and experiment with almost all of the available policies we are going to experiment, it is by doing that we understand it. You will understand it better. But for today, this is enough, and see you tomorrow, I think.